I'm going to introduce Chris, who was a union organizer. He's going to be talking to us about the technique of salting, where you infiltrate a company, a corporation, a store to try to see the lay of the land and try to unionize. So he knows a lot more details than I, so I'll give you the floor. Go ahead, Chris.
Well, thank you very much. I did union organizing for about 4 years. It's kind of what brought me to the city where I'm in now. I came across this job ad that said organizing apprenticeship with this union here, Unite Here. This is kind of their organizing model. And I met with an organizer and he kind of explained the deal to me. It was like, you're going to get a job at this poverty wage job, which was United Airlines. According to the company and your coworkers, you are just a regular worker, but you're going to be meeting with an organizer. You're going to be giving them reports. You're basically, kind of like the way the CIA or infiltrates groups and the way the FBI kind of infiltrated a lot of the black civil rights movements and kind of took down like Malcolm X and Martin Luther King's groups and stuff like that. You're going in and you're getting intel, you're feeding it to your union organizer, and they're mapping everything. Like they had an entire map of like every single worker that worked in that building, and it was like 600 people. They had every single person's name, their shift, what department they worked in, who they were connected to at work, because you're trying to identify leaders, and those are the people you're trying to recruit to eventually meet with the union organizer and get them to kind of join you in organizing and unionizing this place, all in secret outside of work. And there's a part in there, like once you finally meet somebody and you kind of get to know them a little bit and you hang out with them a little bit, then you there's like a test portion where I forget what it is, but you give them some kind of because they meet with the organizer, and the organizer doesn't give them everything to where they can like blow up the whole thing. Like they give them just a little bit of information, and then you, as the kind of salt or whatever, like you go to work and you kind of find out like does this person go to work and start telling people stuff at work, because you got to make sure they're going to keep the secret too. And there were a couple of people that didn't do too good a job at keeping the secret, but for the most part you did, or the people did. Your goal is to get like one leader for every 10 people at work. So I think we had like 550, 600 people. Our goal was to get like 55 leaders. Plus we had like 5 or 6 salts or something like that. And it took from like August to about January to accomplish that. So not that long in the grand scheme of things. And then once you get like all of your leaders covered, you have like a big meeting, because you never get to meet anybody else. Like even me as a salt, like I didn't get to meet the other people. Like the organizers would tell me their names, but I never actually got to meet them.
Just real quick, just because this is a fascinating story. You're going into work as one of these employees, right? You're doing the job. You're feeding, or you're cooking, or you said it was culinary for the airport. So you're going in and working at this crappy job while you're doing this behind the scenes thing. Anyway, continue. I just wanted to make that clear.
In college, I worked in our dorm kitchens in college. It was one of my 3 jobs I had in college. So this catering place was like, "Oh, you have food experience!" Like, yay! Because they had 4 departments at this place. They had warehouse, because like all the food comes in on like semis and these big pallets, so you're unloading it with forklifts and all that stuff. So they had a warehouse job. They had the food production people, which is where most of the women worked. Like it was pretty much like 99% women. Of course, like the food production is the lowest paying job because they consider it unskilled and like all that stuff. But that was where they started me off, because I had food production experience. They started me off there, and I didn't have any warehouse experience, so they started me off there. And I remember the first like week, every single day when I went home, like my back, because I'm 6'2", like I'm working with these women that are like, I don't know if you've been around too many like Pacific Islanders, but they're not tall people. So like I'm working with all these women that are like 4'10" to like 5'2", and everything, all these tables and stuff are set up for their height. So I'm working side by side with them and like having to hunch over and like do all this stuff. And I'm going home every day. My back is killing me. Like, I'm just like wanting to, I'm like, I go home and I'm just like, I don't want to go back the next day. Like I couldn't even stand up straight to walk out to the car when I left, like my first week. Every day I'm like, I'd just go home and just lay on my back for like until I just passed out. And, you know, they're so short staffed too. Like they're always having mandatory overtime every day. So you go in, you know, they tell you it's a 40-hour job, but like you go in because the hours at the airport are like really early too. So you're starting at like 4 o'clock in the morning, something like that, right? Your shift's supposed to be 4 to 12:30, 1 o'clock. And then they come around at like 11:30, 12, and they're like, hey, we need 2 hours overtime today. We need 3 hours overtime today. You never knew what time you were going to get off work every single day. And a lot of these people, they got kids. So I was like, how is this working with like people with kids? Like you never know what time you're going to get off. They got to arrange babysitters. I don't know. It was just wild. I didn't have kids at the time. So, you know, I went in, I'm doing all this. And it's just every day just, you know, sucks. But the good thing about it is like, I think the reason it's such a brilliant organizing model is because a lot of times what happens is, you know, like organizers are usually getting paid like, I mean, they're not getting paid six figures, but a lot of the unions I'm familiar with, especially the bigger unions, they pay their organizers decent. They're getting paid like a, you know, lower middle class salary, something like $50,000, $60,000 a year. They're not doing this work. So they're coming up to workers as kind of like an outsider and trying to get workers to like trust them and feel their pain or whatever. I'm going up to my coworkers like we've been through it together. Like I know exactly what your frustrations are, how much this company sucks. So when it came time for me to figure out like how to motivate my coworkers to really want to unionize, because I mean a lot of them are afraid too, because when you're getting paid, you know, I think these jobs started off at the time minimum wage was 10.20 or something like that. So that's what I was getting paid when I started. And then the raises are nothing. They're like 25, 30 cents a year or something like that. So you'd have women that had been there for 25 years were making $12 an hour. And, you know, and the organizers on the outside, most of them were coming from Yale, because that's where this union I work with, like, I don't know, I think they started at Yale, or I don't know, somehow they're really big in New Haven, Connecticut. They're also really big in Vegas. They control a lot of the hotels in Vegas. I think they're big in Seattle too. They have like these little cities where they're really big, but here in Denver, they don't really have much. So a lot of the people I was organizing with, they were white people from Yale, came from very upper middle class families. Like mom was a doctor, dad was a lawyer type situation or something like that. And they read some theory in college, and then they think they know working class struggle or how to talk to working class people, you know, things like that. Whereas like me, what motivated me to do this was like, I grew up with a single father. I saw my dad have to work multiple jobs. I saw my dad have to do some things that were illegal to get by. I saw my dad get arrested for doing some of those illegal things, which is why I'm like, the war on drugs. I grew up kind of hovering that line between like poverty and being poor my whole life. And then I thought going to college was going to fix that, but it didn't. And just, you know, I'd been around poor people my whole life. Like it wasn't something I had to learn what poor people think, like how to act or how to interact with poor people. Like I was like, oh, these are my people. Like I'm used to this. So it was kind of wild to me, like having people try to explain to me what the mentality of poor people is who have never been poor. And me trying to push back on that constantly and just being like, look, man, this isn't like, you don't know what it's like to be poor. So stop trying to lecture me on this. And that was kind of like a struggle I had with the organizers